I didn't have sex for 5 years of my life. And just for reference, in those 5 years, I looked hot. Look at me. This was me in the time frame I didn't have sex. So I could have had sex. You know what I mean? And I have such a weird relationship with sex because on the one hand, I was a fashion model. I was very sexy. I did underwear photo shoots. I was portrayed in a very sexual way. But then in private, I was pretty much asexual. Especially men don't tend to talk about this. So I just want to have an open conversation that maybe some of you guys can relate to. So here we go. Here is my chronological history of sex. I remember I was at a swimming pool in Germany when I was like maybe 12 years old. I came very close with my little Speedo to a jet, you know, one of these jets that blow out water. And I didn't know anything about touching yourself, about masturbation, but I accidentally made myself finish using the jet. It was just a very innocent exploration of sex with my body. I remember I would even play soccer with my best friend back in Germany, and we would play soccer naked because we thought it was so funny when our balls would jump up and down. But I think there's such an innocence around that, and sex did not have this weight and these societal expectations yet. It was just an innocent self-exploration. And then when I was 15 years old, I went to Peru in South America on a student exchange. And I remember Peru was a more macho country. There's definitely a lot of pressure from these men in Peru to be masculine, to hook up with a lot of girls. I would go out, I would go to quinceañeras, and I would like dance salsa with girls, and I'd try to kiss girls. You know, I did get a lot of attention, right? I was taller, I was a German dude, I looked good, I had six-pack abs naturally at the time, not to brag. But I was not very smooth with girls. And the kids in Peru, they make fun of me for that. They would call me little German marica. They called me Mario pussy. And I wanted to show them that I'm a real man because I had not lost my virginity yet. When I was 16 years old, after 1 year in Peru, right before I was supposed to leave the country, I was like, okay, I cannot leave Peru without losing my virginity. And I convinced a prostitute to have sex with me. Again, I convinced her. I did not pay her. For the record, I did not pay a prostitute. And I gave her this whole speech about, "Hey, Dios mío, I'm gonna go back to Germany and I need to love you now." I didn't sound Italian, but it kind of worked, right? So I talked her into sleeping with me. It was nice. You know, I lasted pretty long for the first time. I think I lasted about 90 seconds, which actually is not bad if you think about it. But I realized that I did not necessarily do this because I wanted to. I did it because I tried to fit in with other men. I did it because of societal pressure. It was always linked to pressure. It was never something organic for me. Except for my first time when I made love to that Whirlpool jet. I miss her. And after coming back as a non-virgin man to Germany, you know, I met some girls. I was with this one girl, and I remember we were planning on having sex that day. I was very inexperienced, and so was she. So I tried to have sex with her, and it didn't work at all. I remember I was nervous. I could not get fully hard. And I was like, what the fuck's happening? I didn't know this was a thing, so I beat myself up for it. And I felt like an absolute failure. I thought that she would tell all her friends. And it really messed with my brain because I always had this tendency in life that I wanted to be the best at everything. I have a lot of self-hate issues. I always felt like I had to be the best at everything. I had to be the best at sports, in school, in order for me to deserve to be loved. So if I failed at anything, it would really mess with my self-worth. And that's when I started becoming a little bit afraid of sex. Because I was like, you know what? I'd rather not have sex than risking to be a failure. And that's also at the same time when I started modeling. When I was 17, 18, I started doing my first ever modeling photo shoots. And I remember my first ever photo shoot when I was 18 years old. I went to this place in Germany. The photographer on the photo shoot said, ask me to touch myself on camera. I had no idea about the modeling world. I thought this was a normal thing that you had to do to get approval from these photographers. I had no guidance in this, and I was 18 years old. So I go to this guy's place and we're shooting, and I remember I felt so uncomfortable the entire time, but I just didn't have the self-worth to set my boundary. And once again, I never thought about it too much. I never thought that this would even affect me. But little by little, sex to me became associated not with something beautiful and organic, like the jet at the swimming pool when I first made love, but it always reminded me of something shameful, something that causes performance anxiety, and something that I don't feel comfortable with. And then as I got older, I got hotter and hotter. Dude, look at some of these photos. Like, I got hotter. I did more sexy photo shoots. I did a lot of underwear modeling, which kind of like was my niche when I was modeling. And my brand became sexier and sexier, but I became less and less sexual. And then I fell in love. It was in New York City. I fell in love with this girl. She's absolutely beautiful, Argentinian. Hardcore fell in love with her. And we had such a beautiful relationship. I was so attracted to her emotionally, spiritually, physically. But I didn't want to have as much sex. And I would beat myself up for it. And then I would really think about how there's something wrong with me. I would think about how my testosterone has to be very low. So I did all these blood tests. And I would try all these new diets. I would change my testosterone. I actually gained a lot of weight as a model because I tried this high-fat diet, which made me get super out of shape. So I felt a little depressed because my body shape was deteriorating. I mean, in reality, I still look pretty good, you know? I can just tell that I was not as lean as I was before. And even though I tried all this stuff, I still didn't want to have sex. The romance with this girl ended, which really fucking broke my heart because I really fell in love with her. And then I was like, okay, I guess something must be wrong with me. I must just be asexual. When I said out loud that I was asexual, it helped me a lot because it helped me feel not so alone, because there was a label that I could use to explain my situation. Also, it would take away some of the pressure I felt from society to have sex, because sex scared me a lot. And I know you're probably gonna be like, what, Mario? You're saying you're afraid of sex, but look at all your images online. You presented yourself in a very sexy way. And that's the weird thing, because I always felt safer sharing my sexuality on a photo shoot set with people, even doing nude photo shoots. I felt more comfortable with that than being intimate with somebody in private. It's almost like I outsourced my sexuality to my job. And I never thought for a second that my lack of sexual drive might be due to trauma. I would have to make a separate video to talk about all the experiences that I had as a male model where people would just touch my penis as photographers. One photographer in Berlin, I remember, he pulled my underwear down and he tried to sit on me. I said, no, I'm not comfortable with this. And I remember he told me that I have to be more comfortable and more open as a model because this is the fashion industry. And if I'm not open, then I won't succeed in this industry. Which is one of the most fucked up things you can tell somebody. So then, even more in my head, I was believing him subconsciously. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not open enough. And then that all led to the moment, and I made a separate video about it. I don't want to make it too much about like the assault and all this stuff. The point is that I got drugged and assaulted by a guy in the fashion industry. It was probably like 7 years ago now. It was like maybe when I was 22, 23 years old. Even after that happened, I just told myself that this was just an experience in life. Maybe this was me trying to be more open. I brushed it off because photographers kind of got into my brain saying that sex is not a big deal and you gotta be more open. So I was raped by this guy, but I never acknowledged that it was rape. I just kept going on with my life. 5 years passed of me not having sex. It's almost like a vicious cycle. The longer I didn't have sex, the more insecure I felt about having sex, which would prevent me from having sex out of fear. And then a lot of times when I would get intimate with a girl, when she would touch me, I would kind of shut down. My body would shut down and I wouldn't understand why. I thought it was just out of fear. I thought it was because I was asexual. I might have some asexual tendencies, like I never was as sexually driven as other people, but it took me until like 4 years ago to finally acknowledge the rape. In 2020, I talked to my friend Travis Bryan in the car, and he randomly opened up about his experience of getting assaulted by somebody in the fashion industry. And I casually told him in the car that this guy, when I was modeling, drugged me and had sex with me. And when I said that out loud, I started crying. I broke down. It was the hardest I've cried maybe ever. Because I realized how much I've been holding back. I didn't tell anybody about any of these incidents. I kind of brushed them off like they're not a big deal. And when I said this out loud, it opened up so much of the things I'd been holding back that I didn't allow myself to experience because I was a man. I thought that as a man you always have to be alpha and strong and stoic and you have to keep moving forward at this bro science approach of always being strong. So I've since talked more about the sexual assault. I made a YouTube video about it that again you can watch down below. I felt that I was being penetrated and that has really given me some purpose because I talked openly about the experience. I was very afraid to share that, and the feedback on the video was overwhelming. I got so many messages from people all over the world who said that something similar happened to them and how they want to thank me for being so open and vulnerable. It really lifted a lot of the pain, and I've since done a lot of therapy. I've done psychedelic experiences that really helped me reconnect with my body. That's around the time where I met my now fiance, and she really pushed for me to open up more about it. It was a very difficult time for both of us because with her, sex felt more secure because I really know and trust her. But even now that I have sex with my fiance, sometimes my body will shut down. And that's something that was very hard for me to accept. A couple months ago we were watching television and I was wearing underwear. And my fiance reached for the remote control and she accidentally touched my package. And I, out of impulse, took her hand and held it away from me. It was almost like something took over my body and pushed her hand away from me. And it's like a textbook trauma response. And it took me a while to even acknowledge that I had trauma. But the more I talk about this and the more I communicate it openly with my fiance and also with other people, the more I've been able to connect again to my sexuality. And I just want to share my experience, first of all, to encourage men to be more open, because we men often feel like we have to be these sex machines and we cannot have any problems with sex. But performance anxiety is a real thing, and I think a lot of men experience that. Sex plays such a big role in our society and a lot of people struggle with it. So I just want to encourage anybody, and especially men, to be more open with that. Talk about it with your friends, talk about it with your bros. Trust me, we all struggle with things like that in one way or the other, and there's no shame in being open about your emotion as a man. And secondly, and that's probably the biggest part of it all, is to love yourself. And it sounds so cliche and it sounds so lame and vague. If I had loved myself, none of this would have happened. Because if I had loved myself, I would have listened to myself. I wouldn't have given in to the expectations of other people in Peru that made me have sex with a prostitute. No, I would have just done it when it felt right to me. I would have loved myself enough to accept when I didn't perform the first time I was with a girl. If I'd fully loved myself, I would have set boundaries with a photographer who abused me. Loving yourself is one of the hardest things in the world, but also at the same time, I think it's the most powerful skill and maybe one of the biggest journeys we all go through in life. This was the gayest video I've ever done. Damn it, guys, I'm a comedian usually, usually everything is very funny, but I just want to talk about this shit openly, because if you share something hard and tough, it can help other people, which helps justify all the dark shit that you go through in life. I love you. Share this video, like it if you think it's of value, and always keep smiling. I love you.